I have two brief questions I'd like to ask, if I may.
Hi, welcome to Left Foot Media. My name is Brendan Malone and you're watching The Daily Question. Today's question of the day is the new Star Wars Kylo Ren's redemption story. Now, the reason I'm asking that question is because I've gone to the viewer mailbag and Andrew has sent me the following email. And he says, "Hi Brendan, I know you don't generally do videos on predictions, but just hear me out." Okay, Andrew, I will. The Kylo Ren / Ben Solo story arc is going somewhere. The redemption of Ben Solo may just be the point of this trilogy, and not actually Rey being the focus. And then Andrew goes on to list what he thinks are some possible Skywalker Arc conclusions. So let's have a look at these. Ben Solo has nightmares about slaughtering his father. He continues to pursue the dark side, but it is slipping away from him. Rey chooses the light side, and somehow through a force vision or a force projection, the film is interdispersed with dramatic scenes between her and Kylo Ren debating light versus dark. She makes an impression on him, but not enough for him to switch sides. Luke also appears to Kylo as a Force ghost, never leaving him, as he promised in The Last Jedi, aiding in his eventual conversion back to the light. The Knights of Ren follow Kylo, but would be a great danger to him if they ever discovered his struggle with the light side. So obviously that would be the point of tension in the story, I guess. The Knights of Ren, or perhaps Hux, or some new character, would have to become the big baddie, like the new Emperor. Kylo's conversion to the light side comes when Rey sacrifices herself at a climactic moment in the film. He can't handle another innocent person being killed like his father, and so her sacrifice impacts him and begins to change him in a powerful way. He begins fighting against the First Order and the Knights of Ren. He prevails due to Rey's Force Ghost showing him the error of his ways. Rey becomes the first female Force Ghost and is shown with Anakin, Luke, Yoda and Obi-Wan at the end of the movie. This is attractive to SJWs, I think, because it makes Rey a martyr as well as honouring her as a Force Ghost. It also means that she ultimately becomes Ben Solo's mentor. By the way, if it did play out like this, she would indeed merit a place as a Force Ghost, and it would be a much-deserved honour. The main problem I see with this concept is that there is no well-developed bad guy who really presents themselves except Kylo Ren in this trilogy as things currently stand. But then they have set up Kylo's redemption so well in so many scenes. Think of his hesitation to fire the killing shot at his mother in The Last Jedi, or Luke's promise not to leave him. And remember, Rey has seen the struggle within him. This has to go somewhere, surely. So I guess my question would be this. Do you think Kylo Ren will be redeemed in Episode 9? It looks to me like this is the setup from Episode 7 and 8, besides the fact that he is also the last presenting Skywalker. I would love to hear your thoughts on this, Andrew. Well, Andrew, I think that you're absolutely right, that the idea behind this trilogy definitely originally was that Kylo Ren was going to be the redemption character. First of all, Rey doesn't need redeeming. Rey is perfectly virtuous already because, unfortunately, she has been written as too much of a Mary Sue, and so she doesn't need saving, she doesn't need redeeming. There is no darkness in Rey at all. Kylo Ren is definitely the one who needs redeeming here. In fact, he is a direct imitation with the mask and everything of Darth Vader, of Anakin Skywalker, who also needed redeeming in the first trilogy. So it seems pretty clear to me that that was what the setup was supposed to be. However, Rian Johnson threw a real spanner in the works. Even though there are those moments, as you allude to, in his film as well, he did throw a big spanner in the works of how that whole redemption arc might work. And I think the biggest problem that he created for Disney was the killing of Snoke. Because if you think about, and this is, I guess, my first big problem here, is that with this idea that you've got, which I think is a good one, and as I've said previously, often good ideas are so good they don't actually end up in the movies. A lot of the fan base are thinking up much better ideas than what the actual writers are of these films. But anyway, I think this is one of the first problems here, is the fact that in the original trilogy, you had this arch villain in this the character of the Emperor Palpatine. And so what happens is you now have a light and a dark temptation, a pull that is going on in the life of Anakin Skywalker. On one side, he has his son, who is pulling him and calling him to the light. On the other side, we have Palpatine, who has him trapped and who is calling him to remain with the dark side. Now, if Kylo Ren shifts, there is no arch villain to actually be pulling him to the dark side. That really should have been Snoke's role, but Snoke is now gone. And I don't think it would be a very engaging story to have Kylo Ren just sort of suddenly switch sides without that tussling that would go on, or that should be happening. The whole idea of temptation and call would be completely missing from the story. And so that's the first problem that I can see here. And you're right to identify there is no major supervillain here. Now, of course, that doesn't mean they won't try and create some new supervillain or resurrect an old one. Who knows? They could well try and do it that way. But that is a clear and very glaring problem here already. Secondly, there's the question of Rey's death. Now, the idea of Rey becoming a martyr, I think, is a really good idea. The problem is whether or not Disney is now so ideologically committed that it will actually put good storytelling ideas second place to ideological ideas that they want to teach the world about how they think reality should be viewed. Now, if your focus is on ideology, you're probably not going to want to martyr Rey in this final film. I'll tell you why. Firstly, because if your focus is on ideology, then you're going to be thinking, no, we can't kill Rey. We need her at the end of the movie, because if we kill Rey and she's not the main hero at the end of the movie, then guess what? It's just going to be a whole lot of blokes on screen again. And we're trying to rid Star Wars of men, not actually elevate men. So that's not a good idea. We need Rey to be there. So if your commitment is ideology, you're not going to think that's a good idea. If your commitment was to good storytelling, you would see the merit in this idea, and you would see how this would be a truly powerful and heroic act of self-sacrifice that would truly elevate her character in truly amazing ways. But if you're ideologically committed, you're not going to care about any of that. Now, the other problem, of course, is if you're ideologically committed, you are committed to this Mary Sue vision of Rey, where she's just the perfect female character, the uber female, and you're not going to want her to die probably, because her dying would be a stain on her perfection, and it would really sort of spoil the pot a little bit if you want to create her as this ultimately super powerful and all-conquering female. So I think those two things are going to be an issue if the filmmakers are more ideologically committed than they are actually storytelling committed. So if they committed more to the storytelling and to good storytelling, then this would be an interesting thing to do. But as I said, the big problem still remains: who is the primary source of temptation for Kylo Ren now? Who is the one who traps him in the dark side, who is constantly calling him and tempting him to remain with the dark side? Unfortunately, that character's gone. The other problem I can see, of course, is that once Kylo Ren converts to the light side, there's no more tension in the story, because what have you got left on the dark side? You've got Hux, who no one takes seriously anymore, and some super weapons and some soldiers, and that's about it. But there's no menace there. There's no real threat anymore, and it would pretty much, you would know, even if it was only subconsciously, you would know that that was the end of the drama in the story. It was game over. Once Kylo Ren shifts his allegiances and is now fighting with the resistance, then they are going to win, and they are going to overcome a much inferior and leaderless and rudderless opponent now. So I think that would be a big issue with the story. The drama would go as well. As per usual, I'd love to hear your thoughts, so please let me know what you think in the comment section below. And if you like the content I'm creating and you'd like to see more of it, then please support me on PayPal or Patreon. There is a link for both in the video description below. That's right, I can hear my theme music too. I'll see you tomorrow on The Daily Question.